On the 30th of January at 6 PM, some big news was dropped. Section of Architectural Workers, a national branch of the largest union in the UK, announced it had reached over 50% membership in Bajork Ingalls Group London. As a proud member of SAW, we need to talk about this event and its importance. So I'm Callum, an architect here at Studio Null, and let's talk about some big news. Now, we will talk about the announcement a little later. Right now, I want to talk about what got us to that point. I might be a member of SAW, but I do not work at BIG, so I'm only privy to publicly released information about the events that have taken place. Internally, BIG announced mass redundancies. These redundancies were set to affect over half of BIG workers, despite £7 million in dividends being paid out last year. BIG currently boasts on its website that there are 177 employees at its London office, meaning that if over half of these could be affected, there's a possibility of at least 89 people being made redundant from this office. Now, the number of employees is important here, as the UK has laws specifically about mass redundancies, one of which is that a redundancy consultation must take place if the company plans to make 20 or more employees redundant within any 90-day period at a single establishment, meaning as BIG is attempting to make at least 89 people redundant, it triggers this law. There are steps BIG must take to comply with this law. BIG must notify the redundancy payment services before a consultation starts. The deadline depends on the number of proposed redundancies. We'll get to that in a sec. BIG must consult with trade union representatives or elected employee representatives, or with staff directly if there are none. BIG must provide information to representatives or staff about the planned redundancies, giving representatives or staff enough time to consider them. BIG must respond to any requests for further information. BIG must issue termination notices to any affected staff members showing the agreed upon leaving date. BIG must issue redundancy notices once the consultation is complete. Now, let's jump back to number 1 on this for a second. The deadline depends on the number of proposed redundancies. Here there are two lengths of days. If there are 20 to 99 proposed redundancies, BIG must inform RPS 30 days before the redundancies take place, and provide a minimum of 30 days consultation before the first dismissal. The next is 100 or more proposed redundancies, in which case the number of days for both jumps up to 45 days. So we know at least 89 people are being made redundant, and we can therefore assume that BIG needs to provide 30 days notice. There is still a chance that there are 45 days, however I cannot confirm this as the notification that BIG must provide, the RPS, does not get released to the public. Okay, but you guys are smart. You must have noticed something else in that list. BIG must consult with trade union representatives. It is therefore important to note that before these redundancy announcements took place, BIG had not recognised SAW as its employees' union. For a union in the UK to gain recognition, it must first ask the company to recognise it voluntarily. However, if a company decides not to recognise it and has more than 21 employees, which BIG does, these employees can apply for statutory recognition from the Central Arbitration Committee. Statutory recognition has a few requirements. They must send a copy of the application and supporting documents to the company as well as CAC. They must have at least 10% union membership within the proposed bargaining unit. But most importantly, they have evidence that a majority of employees support recognition. This is typically done via a petition. Now, I am by no means an expert at labour law, but having more than 50% of employees as members of SAW is a strong indication that they have the majority of employees. SAW, or Section of Architectural Workers, is a trade union and a national branch of the Unite the Union. Unite boasts 1.1 million members across many industries, including construction, across the UK and Ireland. It is important to note the name for SAW, architectural workers. Not just architects. That means the cleaning lady at a studio, the personal secretary to a director, or that guy in accounts. Every single one of these is an architectural worker. They are vital to running an architectural company, and thus all can join SAW. We are not just architects. We are for all employees of architectural companies. This is a critical point, as there have been previous attempts to unionize architecture here in the UK. Back in the 1970s, a group called the New Architecture Movement created a union called BDS-TASS. Unfortunately, during the union purges under Thatcher in the 80s, the union did not survive, as the union didn't support the sector's ambitions. Fighting for all architectural workers is one of the things that SAW has learned from NAM's mistakes. SAW came into existence while I was still studying, back in 2019, and has been fighting and organising for a while now. I'm very proud to be a member of this union. We have fought off redundancies and pay cuts for individuals, and even in some of the worst cases of abuse, we have helped the individual secure financial settlements worth hundreds of thousands of pounds. We actively fight against the prevalence of unpaid overtime within the architecture sector, fighting for architectural companies to stop working on Saudi projects, like the NEOM projects we discussed in my last video. We are pushing back against the Home Office's racist and xenophobic immigration policy changes, which will affect many in the architecture industry. And we are pushing to decommodify housing through public ownership and mass retrofit. However, since 2019, despite our union's achievements, one hurdle has eluded us: recognition. If BIG recognises SAW, they will be the first architectural company in the UK to do so, and they will be the first of many. SAW didn't just announce on the 30th of January that it had more than 50% of BIG employees as members, it also stated that it deemed the mass redundancies taking place to be unfair and that BIG was not engaging in meaningful consultation with its employees. With that announcement, they also presented 7 key demands for BIG. 1. Recognise SAW Unite and engage with elected representatives and union officials. 2. Offer a 6-month voluntary redundancy package to all workers. 3. Enter a meaningful consultation exploring all alternatives to redundancy. 4. Include associates in the selection pool to distribute risk fairly. 5. Provide transparent financial information and evidence of mitigation attempts. 6. Maintain the waiving of all repayment fees, visa, training, etc. as proposed in their original proposal. 7. Offer fair redundancy terms that reflect the upheaval caused, particularly for workers relocated under skilled visas. Alongside these demands, SAW has announced a public demonstration for BIG employees, union members, and all of our supporters. This will take place on Tuesday, the 3rd of February, at 1 PM outside the Bajorg Ingalls Group London office on 1 Finsbury Avenue. Those of you watching this video, join us in a show of solidarity and collective action. Your presence will amplify our voices and reinforce our stand. You may be working in the architecture industry, having just heard that BIG is about to lay off at least 89 employees, and it's okay to be worried about yourself. You don't work in BIG, so you're okay for now, but what caused those redundancies may be coming to your practice too, and your company may need to make mass redundancies as well. Well, BIG has been lucky to have that number of members in the company when redundancies went into consultation. You may not be so lucky. The best protection you can have against these redundancies is to be unionised before they occur. Being organised in a union means you can force your bosses to negotiate with you all collectively. You can challenge unfair dismissals and push to uphold your rights, which can help put a stop to hiring and firing cycles. Use these BIG redundancies. Speak to your colleagues, join the union, and push them to do so as well. Remember, alone we beg, together we bargain.